Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. This is the Elcom webinar, How to Empower and Engage Staff Following COVID-19. We know everyone has just come through a really interesting period of time and still going through this, and your team members might be slowly getting back into the office or still working remotely, or a real big combination of it all. So today's webinar is really focused around giving you the tools, the tips, the strategies, the ideas to really help you empower and engage your staff and team members from now moving forward. So we hope today is going to be really useful and practical for everybody. So today presenting is myself. I'm Josh Anstey, Customer Solutions Director at Elcom, and really lucky we've got Siv Rove joining us. She's our Marketing Manager at Elcom.
Hi guys, good to be here.
And we've both had the pleasure of working with organisations to deliver personalised intranet and digital workplace solutions that help support and manage their remote workforces. And this ensures that their staff and team members have access to the information, tools, knowledge, people, team workspaces, and online forms that they need to be happy, productive, and engaged. So really lucky to have Siv joining us today, and we've got some great information that Siv's going to be sharing throughout today's webinar. Before we do jump in, just a very quick introduction to Elcom. If you have not worked with us before or met us before, we haven't spoken with you before, we're your digital workplace platform partner, and we've been around over 23 years working with organizations around the world and all different sizes and all different industries, helping them deliver personalized, engaging digital workplace and intranet solutions. The Elcom platform can be used for your digital workplaces and intranets, websites and personalization, web portals, learning management, forms and workflow, and social and collaboration. So there's a lot of different ways in which we partner with organizations. And today we're going to be focusing around how Elcom can power your digital workplace and intranet. So we're really excited to be working with everyone around the world on our solution. And really the experience that we've had over 23 years, and especially obviously what's happened in the last few months, is what's informed today's webinar, and hopefully some of the tips, the tricks, and the strategies are going to be useful for everyone, and you'll be able to take them and run and start using them right away. So enjoy, and thank you very much everyone for joining. So we've got a jam-packed agenda today. We're first going to look at what you need to do to help staff adapt to the new normal. We're then going to look at how to keep staff empowered and connected with the right communication tools and processes. And then we're going to wrap it up with some top tips to keep a geographically dispersed hybrid workforce engaged. And then after that, we'll be going into the Q&A. So I'm going to hand across to Siv now to cover that first section, what you need to do to help staff adapt to the new normal. Over to you, Siv.
Thanks, Josh. So after months of enforcing a work from home policy, lockdown restrictions are finally easing, and organizations are looking at what comes next. So what will the new normal actually look like? You know, with the threat of COVID-19 still looming and unfortunately no vaccine in sight, workplaces are going to change. So we expect flexible working arrangements to still be the norm, with a slow transition of staff back to the office or to their full-time jobs, and some organizations remaining partially remote for the next 6 to 12 months. We are going to be seeing a lot more workplaces with hybrid and alternating teams in place, which unfortunately is going to lead organizations to seeing a drop-off in collaboration. You know, while there's still plenty of interaction between direct team members, there is less interaction outside of this immediate circle. And this will continue to drop as staff find themselves no longer working at the same time and place as their colleagues. So it's now more important than ever, you know, it's for formal and informal employee networks to move to digital channels. So added to this, technology and collaboration silos are likely to grow. You know, in the 2020 State of Digital Customer Experience report, CMS Wire found that when asked about their organization's top digital customer experience challenges, 47% of staff said they have siloed systems and/or fragmented customer data, and 42% cited limited cross-department alignment and collaboration. And mind you, this was prior to COVID-19. So these trends regarding the new normal requires a critical shift in workforce management to help staff adapt. And this will include an emphasis on gathering feedback and improving technology and processes. So are staff using tools you implemented for the intended purpose? Are they turning to unapproved apps? Figure out if they're following the right process, and if not, find out why. So more transparency and visibility is needed across the organization and departments. Be explicit about what is happening and what is required of your workforce to alleviate, those concerns they're likely to have. Explain the what, the when, and the who. And make sure to use channels where you can personalize the content so you don't overload staff with irrelevant information. So you'll need to identify what are the new norms and behaviors for remote teams, hybrid teams, and so on. So, for example, addressing the higher than normal degrees of uncertainty, especially, those who face care responsibilities, or what the proper handover process is for alternating teams who work one week and not the other. So expect these to evolve and continue to address these new norms to maintain, your productivity and collaboration levels. Acknowledge that everybody works differently, and that includes different hours and days. Make sure to set and align expectations by working with managers to encourage employee self-direction and focus on outputs rather than specific daily tasks. So develop digital literacy capability across the workforce while also developing softer skills and human capabilities that complement technology and enhance the customer experience. So this can be through, self-directed online learning programs, or through formal and informal group training sessions such as Lunch and Learns, or, as an example, ANZ's Enterprise Cloud Portfolio team recently ran a Get Certified in a Week program for thousands of staff working remotely. And finally, in this new normal, remember that staff who once worked together face-to-face no longer are. So continue to enable and prompt staff to build social and emotional connections digitally. And make sure to emphasize the positives and always cite specific examples of this when you can. So now I'll just hand over back to Josh to chat through the next section.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Siv. And yeah, really interesting to look at some of those statistics and data. And I think if those reports were run this week, it'd be interesting to see what those results would be as well, those statistics. So in this section, we're going to look at how the right tools and processes not only help staff adapt to this new normal, but keep them empowered and connected. So the first idea or concept to think about is making systems seamless. And think about how you can make your digital ecosystem simpler and quicker for staff, especially for staff working at home and those that are working possibly on laptops or smaller screens. So monitor what systems are working and what systems aren't working. Are there official tools that staff are not using, or are staff using unapproved apps and tools? And that can present security risks for the business. And it also gives you a bit of an indication and an idea that the official tools aren't actually working or meeting the needs of your team members. Think about what can be integrated, or at least what can have single sign-on put in place so that users can quickly and easily move between different systems, and it makes their life a lot easier. I think also about what data can be pulled into a central location to make life a lot easier for your team members so they don't have to jump around too much. As an example, taking Shape, pull in sales data from the store when the employees log sales in their system over there, they pull that through and display that on their intranet, so it's all in one central location. And also think about what can be consolidated or removed or replaced. So an example might be where you're pulling in search results from lots of different systems, or where you're trying to pull in lots of content from multiple systems into one location to save users moving around. Or you might find that one solution can actually tick the boxes of 2 or 3 others, and you don't need to have too many other systems in place to achieve the same or a very similar goal. While you can and most likely communicate to staff through several channels, such as email or instant messaging tools such as Slack, it should all point back to one single source of truth, such as the knowledge base on your intranet. And this way, staff know where to go to find the latest version of any information, of documents, policies, or procedures, and publishers only have to maintain one version of this information. So for example, if you shared something on an instant messaging tool, it's a big challenge if someone's not working that day or that week, and they're going to miss out on that update and have to scroll through hundreds and hundreds of messages to try to find that specific update. So ideally, you want to create that one-stop shop to capture and communicate that organization knowledge. For example, how-to guides for new processes and systems, or you might have new healthy workplace hygiene policies that you put in place, or new HR policies or HR forms that need to be submitted. So bringing that all together in your knowledge base on your intranet will help you categorize the information and make it much easier for users to search. And there are many, many benefits to actually doing it this way. For example, you can enable your team members and staff to subscribe to alerts around certain topics or from specific people or users so that they're notified when those policies are updated or when there are new news items tagged as a specific keyword. You can also take advantage of document library features. So you could upload documents and tag them so that they surface in the right place. You can also use the document management tools and capabilities such as expiry dates, review dates, versioning, replacing documents. And again, this is going to make sure that users access the policies and procedures that are relevant, that are accurate and up to date. You definitely don't want someone right now following a safety or health procedure from 2019. You definitely want to make sure they're looking at the 2020 policy that you probably updated in the last few weeks. And another key benefit is that you can automate content creation, and this is going to enable all staff to contribute to your information hub in your intranet. So for an example, or a practical example, is where you might set it up where staff can submit an online form with information, and that can go through an approval process. And if it's approved by the appropriate person, it can automatically be published as a templated news item or article on your intranet knowledge base. So the next area is around setting expectations to gather feedback and really address the new norm in terms of what is this actually looking like. So if we have a look at the organizations right now and we sort of look at how have you historically gathered feedback and how have you engaged with everyone historically, I think it's been a little bit disconnected. So I think something that's really important is having timely and consistent updates. So you're going to want to regularly push news and updates to users, whether it's updating return to office policy and plan, or it's a roster you've got with, 1 week one team's on, the next week the other team's on, or it's just communicating with everyone who's working remotely and they're in lots of different locations. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you're using the tools on your intranet to push out that update to staff and let them also subscribe to topics that they may be interested in. For example, they may want to make sure they get every update that's tagged as COVID-19. You can also then decentralize the publishing and communication. So while you might have a whole organization communication, it could also be updates that are relevant for specific teams, departments, or staff in different office locations or different cities, so that you can centralize and regionalize and personalize that as well. Using the acknowledgements tool will also help ensure that your staff and team members have read important notices or announcements. So for example, they might log in, it could pop up and say, look, you need to read this new policy and comply or agree, and check a box to confirm that they've read the update and they're happy with it and they accept it and they agree to the new terms and conditions or new health policy. This is also going to help you from an auditing perspective, being able to jump in and have a look and report on who has or has not accepted the new health policy. And also regularly surveying individuals. So using online forms to be able to capture sentiment, feedback, ideas from everyone. And this can very, very quickly be set up as an online form on your intranet that you can then display to different staff when they're logging in. A great example is some organizations might be looking at running those to see, how do people get to work? Are they on the train or the bus? Are they walking or are they driving? And do they feel comfortable going on public transport in the current environment or not? So great way for you to actually get that feedback, survey your team members, and engage with them in real time. And then also using feedback loops. So for example, use a support ticketing system, whether it's separate or part of your intranet, for staff to be able to raise issues or questions, where it can also then trigger an automated workflow notification to the appropriate users. There is a lot of merit to having it as part of your intranet, so it's one central location, and it's really easy for everyone to log in and be able to log that question or log that ticket or get some help. You need to also break down the silos and improve visibility. to help keep employees informed about the organisation goals and strategies as well as other parts of the business. Only 40% of employees report that they are well informed about their company's goals and strategy. And they're really easy ways to be able to break down silos and improve visibility. So for example, get leadership on board. Decide on what channel they're comfortable with, whether it's by posting in the news area or the blog or in the social collaboration area of your intranet. And it's really important to get them to reinforce your company goals and strategy and to be engaging with the platform. Create departments or team hubs or workspaces. And this can be used to regularly communicate the status of key projects for different teams or departments or cross-functional groups who are working on a project. You can also then integrate the hub with other systems you might be using, for example, your CRM or your ERP or a project management tool, for example, to bring all that data into one central location. And you can also let your team members subscribe for updates so that when something is posted in that area or there is an update, they can get notified. They don't have to come back and keep checking it every single day. And the last point around breaking down silos and improving visibility is communicating a unified vision. So give staff a sense of purpose and help them understand why they're doing what they're doing and why it's really important. And you can highlight how your organization is actually working towards that vision or purpose. For example, you could share a customer success story or how you've helped the customer during this period of time. So quite a few ways to break down those silos and improve visibility. Prompt staff to communicate with the organization and each other by enabling collaboration. I think that's a really key thing is you don't just want to have the tools there, but you want to obviously enable everyone to collaborate as well. And so choose tools that allow remote or dispersed team members to build relationships with each other, regardless of their location, whether they're working from home or in multiple cities. So you might look at tools such as wikis, microblogging, social Q&A, team workspaces, polls. And I think a really important point with that is you don't just want to put it in place and just have it available and say, great, go use it. But you definitely want to communicate why and what the situation is and why you would use that tool and where it is best to use. For example, new policies should be shared through one area. You don't want to put them in a chat where they might get lost and nobody's ever going to see them again. You'd rather have them in the policy section of your intranet digital workplace so that everyone can find them, they can search for them, they can send a link to other colleagues to be able to get access to the most recent policy, as opposed to emailing around a Word or a PDF document, for example. It also ensures that everyone's always accessing the most recent up-to-date version. Facilitate collaboration by enabling teams to quickly create team workspaces. So workspaces really allow teams to move work out of email threads and into centralized collaboration areas, which are a lot more efficient. They're searchable. You can have them open to different teams or private and locked away to a specific group of users. You can add other capabilities such as document lists and calendars, news updates, social updates, and a lot more. But it really brings us together in a central collaborative environment for that team. And bring it all together in one central interface. So you can use your intranet to provide quick links to collaboration tools for easy access, or you can embed or integrate those tools into your intranet and bring that in. And I think that's also really important because your intranet digital workplace is not going to replace all the tools. There's going to be lots of different tools that are going to make up your digital ecosystem, but it's really a good idea to think through, well, which ones do we want to provide a link off with single sign-on where a user can click and go to that system, and which do we actually want to surface data from other systems and bring those into our intranet here. So you want to create that central interface, that central dashboard, so it's a one-stop shop to access everything you need, but you're not necessarily trying to bring it all into one specific place. Inevitably they're going to have to go to other areas, but it's just really about facilitating the experience and providing a much better employee experience there. Highlight and reward is a really interesting idea, and I think especially with this remote working, a lot of people working from home, they might not see many people for quite a few days or see colleagues for a while. So I think it's more important than ever to recognize your often, faceless yet valuable assets, and communicate their achievements across the business. And I say faceless in the sense that, yes, everyone sees each other with video conferencing and, FaceTime or things like that. But it is harder to be noticed when you are remote, when you're working from home, when you're not bumping into people in the hallway or catching up with them in the kitchen or something like that. So I think it's really, really important. So there's quite a few easy ways you can do that. Nominations is a really big one. So enable colleagues to nominate each other and enable line managers to put forward team members for mentions from leadership. And this can be really easily done. This doesn't have to be a whole big technology solution. You can very quickly and easily do this today by setting up online forms and workflows. And you can build a form in minutes, especially in the Elcom platform, and then you can capture those nominations and notify the appropriate people about those nominations automatically. You can then also very easily publicize those recognitions. So make sure your formal award recipients are known to their colleagues. And these can be displayed prominently on your intranet. You could have it on the homepage where there's a rewards widget or a section around acknowledgements or awards or accomplishments or whatever it might be. It's obviously going to be a lot more difficult to bring everybody together in a meeting room or somewhere and probably physically hand over an award. And so you can very easily do this through your intranet digital workplace, and that's a key area we've seen clients enhancing their Elcom intranets and just quickly adding that on. It's, it's a very quick addition over there to enable that. I think external recognition is really important as well. So encourage your team members and your staff to vote for your business in other industry awards. And it also helps build your brand and get your name out there. And also gamification. So look at how you can set up online games, whether it's photo competitions, everyone's submitting a photo, whether there's virtual Easter egg hunts. So a great example, I've seen some organizations where they want to drive deeper engagement with their intranet, and they've hidden Easter eggs around the intranet, and you've got to go find them and click through different pages and find the Easter eggs, and then you win a prize at the end. Or naming competitions for the intranet or something else. So there's lots of ways in which you can highlight, reward, and engage everybody. Combating social isolation is a really key topic. I think it's become front and center for everybody, especially during the last few months. And for those that are working from home and they're not seeing everyone, it is a very real issue that comes up and something that needs to be addressed. And there's many different areas, so we're obviously not going to address everything with that because that's a really, really big topic and there's multiple facets. But we're going to look at it more from, I guess, an intranet, a technology, a digital workplace perspective. So how can your intranet support and combat social isolation? So the first is look at creating non-work-related spaces. So you might want to set up an online workspace or a team workspace where everyone's posting exercise ideas, for example, or there's a parent support group, or there's a fundraising group, or it's all really focused around social activities, social share recipes, for example, or just really an ability to provide a way to talk to your colleagues that you might talk about in the kitchen or over lunch or grabbing a coffee or in the hallway, but actually bringing that into the digital experience. Create work-related spaces as well, and so these might go beyond the standard team areas or department areas, but maybe it's a work-related space where people can share external articles they've read, news articles, industry publication articles that are just relevant and interesting for everyone else to help learn more, upskill them. So it might be best practice for design, for example, or it might be customer support best practices or whatever it might be, but just ways to share relevant information to your team members. And another idea is hosting friendly work competitions. So, whether it's work related and it's ideation or it's improvement of processes, or it's non-work related, it's, best working from home photos or your pet photos or baby photos, or, there's so many different ways you can encourage everyone to interact with each other. There's a few other ideas, craft challenges, a quiz of the day, a book club, virtual lunch and learns, which are obviously really helpful. So, new staff meetings to meet other people that have just joined the organization. So there's many, many different ways in which you can actually bring everyone together. Boosting staff morale is obviously really, really important, and you want to help individuals feel trusted and valued and build their inter-office relationships virtually. So, focus on teams and individuals and build affinity and bonds between colleagues virtually. You can also help them share and highlight their work anniversaries, team member spotlights, or virtual events. And also, I think it's really important to personalize that so that you're seeing something that's relevant to you. You might need to see information that's organization-wide, but definitely really important to see information that's relevant to you. Authenticity and personalization, they really go hand in hand, and I think transparency around timely, relevant communication is really key, especially during this period. You want to make sure that everyone's accessing the information they need and that you can segment and personalize it, but you don't want to go too fast. There is a happy balance there between what from a top-down perspective you need people to see, but also from a bottom-up perspective is where users can jump in and personalize the experience and they can see information they want to see that actually resonates with them. And the last point over there is keep launching new initiatives, whether it's wellbeing hubs, lunch and learns, video series, user-generated content, whatever it might be, but it's just a great way to boost your team members' morale, and it's a great way to keep everyone engaged. The last point I'll mention is where you can take your training online. So I think it's really important to support career development and new team members joining and help get them up and running as quickly as possible. And so you can really simplify this experience by bringing that on-demand learning into your digital workplace with your learning management system as part of the intranet. And it's obviously a key enhancement and ability with the Elcom platform, where you can deliver on-demand learning, you can integrate to intranet and other related resources, and you can monitor and track results with different reporting tools. This is also then going to help self-service onboarding, and really I think that's a key thing as well. You know, people not being in the office anymore, remote team members, you need everyone to be able to get on board as quickly as possible, whether it's going through a checklist of activities and links to resources, key dates and calendars, online training, onboarding forms, or even a corporate directory to find, as I like to say, the who's who in the zoo. And here's an example of the Star Group Intranet. They're a Tier 1 electrical communications and maintenance contractor, and they've used the Elcom LMS, which is part of their Elcom Intranet. And they basically deliver different training courses such as general induction, manual handling awareness training, and general warehouse induction. And that's available to staff across Australia in different locations where they can really self-enroll and complete at their own pace. So that's just some examples and some, hopefully practical tools and tips and tricks that will obviously enable you to use the right tools and processes to keep everyone empowered and engaged. Before we jump into the Q&A, I'm going to hand over to Siv to talk about the top tips to keep a geographically dispersed hybrid workforce engaged.
Thanks, Josh. So how do you keep your workforce engaged? We've touched on this content throughout the webinar, but just to summarize, you can keep your workforce engaged by connecting them to the business, to each other, and to resources. So connecting them to the business will involve providing them with a sense of certainty and making sure to communicate those broader long-term business updates alongside their immediate and urgent updates. So reinforcing culture, what is your culture? Has it changed? And do you have a strong customer service focused culture? Is it family orientated? Make sure you communicate and showcase resilience in teams that demonstrate this. So active visibility, get managers and leaders to consistently promote what they're doing. This can be done via the intranet, through a department or team hub, or, through sharing a blog or, video blog, or through a fortnightly or monthly what's happening session around different departments. So you also need to keep connecting employees to each other. So prompt those interactions and keep encouraging staff to interact with one another. It's one thing to provide them with the tools, and it's another to give them a reason to keep using it. And it is really helpful if you can get leadership on board for this one. So monitor communication tools, communicate why it should be used and when it's appropriate to use. Look at how well it actually works for that intended purpose. Please do not have a set and forget mentality with your tools. So monitor sentiment. This is incredibly important given the uncertainty and anxiety staff are feeling. Regularly survey and gather feedback via online forums and workflows. Look for trends and, of course, distribute feedback to relevant parties to implement those changes. And finally, connect them to resources. So make everything they need transparent. Who's working today? Are there any updates from last week they might have missed? They shouldn't have to dig through dozens of emails or Skype each other to find out. So plan to address all types of staff and resourcing challenges. This will vary from organization to organization, but as an example, with alternating staff who work in the office and at home, figure out if they have the equipment they need distributed among work and home, or, if you might decide it's a good idea to have the corporate directory updated with their new workdays and hours to help staff understand when it's best to contact each other. And finally, personalized communication, news, and information. We've mentioned this frequently and we cannot emphasize this enough. For example, remote workers don't need to know about office birthday cake days, but it is obviously important to mention for those who are in the office. So make sure you personalize for different groups of people, whether it's your frontline, the office, or your home workers, and even the different shifts they have. So that concludes the webinar content for today. Now we'll jump into the Q&A section. Thanks to everybody who submitted a question. We actually have quite a few that have come through. So if we don't get to it today, we will be following up with you directly.
Fantastic. And yeah, thank you so much, Steve. That's really, really useful and interesting. And I like the idea of connecting everyone and keeping them engaged to the business, each other, and resources. Because I think that is really important. There's obviously the business and everything we're doing, but also each other, our colleagues and teams, and just other resources around. So great content there to end it. Before we jump into the Q&A, if anyone hasn't posted any other questions, please jump in and post them now. We'll do our best to answer as many as possible. So we've got a few coming in right now, so I'll let Siv start asking the questions and we'll do our best to answer them.
Okay, fabulous. So first question, we have an internet that is really old and nobody uses it. What would you recommend we do?
Yes, that's an interesting question, interesting challenge. There's obviously the desire right now probably to get everyone engaged and communicated with and up and running as quickly as possible. At the same time, it sounds like there's something that is not working there, or there hasn't been too much engagement with, or updated information. So, as a best practice response, I think it definitely makes sense to have a look at that and look at updating it or refreshing it. Maybe looking at redesigning and rebranding to give it a whole new message. But it's not just a coat of paint. So it might be understanding, what are people trying to get access to, what are they looking for, and how are you going to turn it into a place that they want to go to, not that they have to go to. And I think to the point we spoke about earlier, survey your team members, find out what are they using, what's working, what's not working. And you're probably going to find that there are 5 or 6 different systems that don't talk to each other, that everyone's just using by themselves, or different teams are just using in their own right. And it just creates a really fragmented and disconnected organization. And therefore, it's really hard for you to get out the right information, the right updates, and the policies and procedures, especially if there is emergency. So I definitely recommend have a chat to your team members, understand why they're not using it, but probably is in the organization and every team member's best interest to get it updated as soon as possible, and probably more than just changing the logo and giving it a name and a redesign. That's a key point, but understanding what capabilities and functionality it should have and how do you make it really useful for everyone.
Great. So next question. How do you get everybody to buy into the new communications platform and strategy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there's a couple of different ways to look at it, and change management and getting organizational buy-in is a really big topic. But to extend probably the answer to the first question is you need to make sure that it's actually delivering the information and capabilities that everyone wants. It's actually going to make their life a lot easier. And then you need to make sure that they can find the information they need, that there's really powerful search. So if they do go there, they might not want to navigate around. They can quickly search and find what they want, and they'll find it really useful. It's not an overnight thing. It will take a lot of time. A couple key tips as well. Look at assigning team leaders or champions in different teams and departments and getting them to essentially evangelize their digital workplace and intranet across their teams and get everyone to start using it. And start pushing key communication messages through it and policies and procedures. So that over time, everyone knows this is the place I've got to go. This is where that information is going to be. And as they find it more and more useful, that mindset's going to change and it's going to turn to a place that is, a place they want to go to, not a place they have to go to. And most importantly, it's got to be easy for them to publish, to share, to collaborate, to post updates, to post news items, and make sure it's really personalized so that they're seeing organization information, but also stuff that's relevant to them individually.
Great. So next question. How do we build the culture and train our users, especially if they're going to be publishing content and updating news?
Yeah, good, nice long question there. So probably the first half of that question is probably similar to the previous one in terms of trying to build the culture and that change management. And again, it's really about that internal messaging and really about making sure there's different champions and that it's actually delivering information people want and it's useful and it's relevant to them. With regard to training other users and making sure it's easy to post updates or share content, again, it comes down to that user experience, and it should hopefully be a point-and-click experience to create content and edit content. Now, the Elcom platform, to mention Elcom there, is obviously designed to enable non-technical users to point and click and create and edit and publish content. So you really want to make sure it's easy for them to do that. And from a training perspective, remote training, look, we've been doing that at Elcom for a very long time. We've got a global customer base, so it is important to run those remote training sessions. And I'd also suggest a refresher training session maybe a month or so later where users can come back maybe a little bit more experienced and a little bit more informed, and they can ask specific questions around things they're trying to do.
The next question, what types of systems should we look to integrate to?
That could be a really long list. It depends on the organization. So you might want to integrate to things like your Active Directory or Azure AD for single sign-on and user authentication and help populate your corporate directory. You might want to pull in information from your accounting system to show certain data and information to users, or your ERP, for example, like we showed that case study during the presentation. So it really depends on the systems you're using. You might have different record management systems you need to pull data in from. So it really depends on what systems you are using as to what you should integrate to. I think the biggest thing before you even jump into trying to integrate is understand the reason why. What's the user experience, the user journey, and what is actually the reason you're going to do that integration? Too often we hear organizations where they just want to integrate just for the sake of it because they think it's a really good idea. And then when you ask the question, who needs that information, or what are they going to see, or what will they access? They have no idea. They haven't thought it through. They just thought it was a really good idea to integrate something. So I think it's really important to first think about the end goal and the solution and what are you trying to deliver for the user, and then work backwards and see if it makes sense to actually integrate, or maybe you don't need to integrate anything. You can actually just link off to another system.
Okay, this is an interesting one. Our company doesn't have an intranet. Is there another way we can communicate with everyone besides email?
Yeah, so I was going to say email is probably what's happening at the moment, or there's lots of other systems that are disconnected and fragmented and everyone's sort of doing their own thing. So yeah, look, the best way or best practice would definitely have some type of employee portal or digital workplace intranet experience there for everyone to land on and access the information they need. That would definitely be the best practice because you've got that central place. Right now you've got probably lots of email happening or random messages, and it's all just unstructured, disconnected. You can't audit it. You can't roll back on it. You can't see if it's been accessed. You can't ensure everyone's got the right news and updates. So yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's never too late. The Elcom platform is very easy to roll out. It's quick to deliver. It's cost effective. It's easy for non-technical users to actually update and publish. So yeah, definitely get in touch. I'd love to have a chat to you about how we can actually help solve that for you and help the organization.
All right, guys, I think we have time for one more question. Our forms are all PDF and paper. Where should we start to digitalize these?
So that's a really good question, and we touched on the idea of online forms during the webinar a few times, and didn't want to go into too much detail. We actually have a webinar we ran about this a couple months ago, which I definitely recommend you check out on the Elcom website and review that. I think it's a great idea to digitize those and set them up as online forms and workflows. And in Elcom, the online forms and workflow capability is all point and click and drag and drop. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to ensure that people are filling in the right form and the right data, and they're not just emailing around a PDF or a Word and filling out the wrong form or following the wrong policy or procedure. So yeah, definitely recommend it's a good idea to map those out and look at how many you have. You might have tens or hundreds or thousands, but probably look at the ones that are most commonly used or the quick wins, because if you get those over the line and you get everyone using those, you'll start to change the behavior, you'll drive the adoption, and you'll ultimately help set the pathway for bringing other forms online and making those digital as well. So yeah, a lot of organizations have that challenge, and I thought that question might come up when we spoke about it a few times during the webinar. There's also a webinar, as I said, on our website, so go check that out. But yeah, it definitely makes sense to digitize those. Fantastic. Well, that sounds great. I think that's about all we've got time for now. There are a few other questions and we'll come back to you individually. But really appreciate Siv joining us today and really appreciate everyone joining us on the webinar today. We hope you found it helpful and useful in supporting your journey to empowering and engaging your staff and team members following COVID-19. Our contact details are on the screen. Please get in touch and we'd love to see how we can partner with you and your organization and help power your employee experience. Speak to you soon.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.